Hi and welcome, Cody Hammer here with another SQL 2005/2008 video tutorial. Today I'd like to talk a little bit about database maintenance using traces. To get started, some of the basic reasons you need to keep database maintenance in mind is because databases need to perform pretty much to an optimum level by having the fastest response and delivery times. In order to do that, you need to manage your network traffic, your disk input output, and the CPU uses must perform efficiently. You need to be able to do such things as assess application requirements, analyze database usage, understanding logical and physical data structures, arrange trade-offs between conflicting users as well. Some of the factors that influence a database performance, a couple examples on that: increasing number of users. As you create databases, it's always going to expand as a company gets bigger, as your databases gets bigger. You might have more users, you might have more connection methods, you might have the need to increase data storage requirements. And as again, you later on you'll have increased network traffic. The things that you can do, or the steps that you can take to manage some of the things that I just talked about, are you can view and manage response times, T-SQL queries, and you can also view the users. Um, it's also important to remember that even if your database is performing properly and there's really not a whole lot of errors, or it's not really slowing down at all, you should keep in mind that a baseline measurement is useful because it allows you to look and view at the peak on and peak off hours of operation. It also allows you to use a production query or batch command response times, and the completion times for database backup and restore statements. When you run into performance options, of course it's gonna slow your operating system way down if you have too many users on there and you're not performing these database maintenance performance options. The hardware is gonna slow down quite a bit. The network, if you have a lot of network traffic, it's gonna slow down the network quite a bit. Database applications and client applications are also going to slow down. Um, so I got a little slideshow here. A trace definition. What a trace is basically a way to view what's going on with your database. You can view users, you can view how much CPU usage a job or jobs are taking, or um, things of that nature. Also, if you have stored procedures, you can see how much CPU usage those stored procedures are taking up every time they're ran. So basically, it's a trace definition is a collection of events such as batch starting and completing that are monitored on a specific database. They can be created manually, or you can also use the SQL Server Profiler, which I prefer. It's an easier option for me to create and run a trace. Some of the reasons you would want to use a trace, again, is finding queries that are not performing right, causes of deadlock. And what deadlock is a situation where two or more competing actions are each waiting for the other to finish. Um, so if you've got two actions going on, they kind of talk to each other, and neither one of them finishes because they cause conflicts with one another. So basically, multiple processes try to access the same resource. They can also monitor performance or stored procedures, activities. I'll show you in my demonstration what the profiler template is, but there is a basic profiler template there that you can use and then make changes to that and then save the default template as something else if you make changes to it. This is basically done to define event classes and data columns to include the traces. Every time a trace is ran, it'll record data for event classes defined in your saved templates. Templates can be, again, like I was just talking about, they can be reused many times, especially if you're rerunning a template. It's not actually executed, but instead it is the event only that are defined. So I'm going to do a demonstration here within Windows Server 2008 using VMware. I'll go ahead and full screen this. And to do this, we're going to be using the SQL Server Profiler. Let's see here. Let me see if I can pull this down a little bit. Okay, view full screen. Drag this down a little bit. So here's SQL Server Profiler. To access this, we click the Start button, point to All Programs, Microsoft SQL Server 2008, and then Performance Tools, and SQL Server Profiler. From here, once SQL Server Profiler is open, we can select File and New Trace, connect to our local database, and we'll give this a trace name of mytrace1. We will use the standard default template. You can save this here now if you want, but you don't have to, because later on you have the option of using the standard template and then resaving it again as a table or a file. So I'm going to go ahead and run this. Wait a minute, this is what I wanted to do. Let's see. File, new trace, connect to the local database. mytrace1. Okay, that's what I forgot to do. And then on the event selection, we have, this is all the events that we can view. So there's some security auditing, there's some stored procedures, and some T-SQL procedures using batch statements. If we click on Show All Events, we can expand upon the standard template and do things like cursors. Every time a cursor closes or opens, we can monitor that. We can do full text, locks. Again, the deadlock is a good thing to keep in mind, the lock deadlock, which I was talking about before. I think that's one of the major problems that you can run into with databases if they're trying to access the same resource. If multiple processes try to access that. So it's a good idea to view that and make sure everything's running properly and there's no conflict with deadlocks there. We can also see if any objects have been created, deleted, or altered, which I think would be a good thing to have. Do scans. There's quite a bit of options here. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that, and I'll run this. You can do column filters if we want to, where the duration is equal to, and I think these are in nanoseconds, so we'll do duration nanoseconds, amount of time taken by the event, time at which the event ended. So there's a couple different options there with column filters. And we can go ahead and run this. As you can see here, the text data is Well, the CPU column is in milliseconds. It shows how much time is taken by each event. The text data is the name of the stored procedure. Um, and then from here we can see how much CPU usage each stored procedure is using. We can also if we expand this was another thing I was going to say. If sometimes this window right here is hidden, if we actually click on that stored procedure, it gives us more information about what's going on there. And then if we go to File and save the trace as a file, we can save it as a trace file, a trace template, or a trace table. If we save it as a file, you can open that later and then go back and make configuration changes to that trace file. If you save it as a table, what I like about this idea is that you can make queries against it. For example, you can show all events that took longer than a certain number of milliseconds. Again, this was creating traces so that you can perform database performance tuning. And I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. Thank you.